High vibrations, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bringing It Home with C. N. Smith, a show about all things homeschool related, including news and information that have an impact on our children. I am your hostess, Christina Nicole Smith. Some of you may know me by my Aboriginal name, Adelohoski Akatanai. If this is your first time watching the show, thank you for joining us today, and a big thank you to all of our new subscribers. Welcome to the show. I want to take a moment to thank every single person that supports the channel through Cash App. It allows me to continue to bring this important message of homeschooling future generations to the collective. It's truly a blessing, and I'm sending waves of prosperity back in your direction. Also, thank you for liking and sharing our videos. It means so very much to me. And if you're interested in starting your homeschooling journey, but you've still got some questions, you may find my guide helpful, and you can find that at the link below right here. All right. Today's guest is a true education powerhouse. Professor LaToya Robinson is a passionate educator, accomplished trainer, and expert workshop facilitator. With an impressive track record of empowering educators and fostering growth, she has become a catalyst for change in the field of education. The professor is renowned for her ability to create transformative learning experiences through interdisciplinary workshops and professional development training sessions. Her expertise extends far and wide, working with national organizations, higher education faculty, and leadership teams. She excels at uniting diverse cultural backgrounds within learning communities, cultivating an inclusive and dynamic environment. As an advocate for mental health and social emotional learning, Professor Robinson has dedicated her career to equipping teachers with culturally relevant and responsive tools. Her guidance enables educators to navigate the ever evolving landscape of education, fostering a strong foundation of empathy, understanding, and growth mindset. Get ready to delve into the pressing topics of the rising mental health epidemic in schools and growth mindset training. Professor Robinson's insights and expertise are sure to captivate and inspire as we explore the ways in which education can become a transformative force. So, without further ado, let's give a warm virtual round of applause for the incredible Professor LaToya Robinson. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for that resounding introduction. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to start right out the gate by playing a clip
Okay.
of a gentleman by the name of Ray Shelton. Now, he's a former fifth grade teacher of California's Glendale
hmm
Unified School District. So let's take a listen to what he says is going on in elementary schools in his former district in this short clip. And I actually have there are two short clips back to back, but let's go
Sure,
ahead and
sure.
just take a
Okay.
look really quick, and then I want to hear what you have to say about this right afterwards. Okay.
In the last several years, there's been a very slow, very quiet introduction of transgender ideology into the curriculum and into the training sessions with teachers. And there has been no outreach to the parents, no transparency. And this last year at our school site, we were K through 5. In kindergarten, there is a young boy whose parents are sending him to school dressed as a girl. And there's also a girl whose parents are sending her to school dressed as a boy. And we were informed that we have to use the preferred pronouns that the family wants in addressing these students. If for some reason we would need to, as an upper grade teacher, I don't really have contact with the younger kids. So there's this issue of compelled speech, which is what exactly got Dr. Peterson in trouble in Canada. So if we do not comply, we will be disciplined and fired. Now, we all know in the corporate world, you have to do certain things you don't particularly like, and you just go along. But what disturbed me is the other children must comply. with forced speech, or they will be disciplined and expelled. And that really made me very angry.
Okay, so keeping in mind what he just said about the children and the adults having to comply with forced speech or face disciplinary consequences, do you think this is a part of the rising mental health epidemic in schools?
I absolutely do. And the first thing that comes to my mind as I was watching the clip was I would say back somewhere in the 90s. I don't know who was in administration at the time, first off, but to not be so deeply political on a national front, the community was eased out. And when they eased the community out of education, it was a way to slide in their agenda, which we're seeing the ramifications of that right now.
Mhm.
So when I do you remember being in school when community was a part of school, when
Mm.
the teachers had relationships
Yes. Okay. Yes.
and you
Yep.
nudged
Hmm.
your
Hmm.
corner.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
children, like if children got out of line, there
Yep.
was
Hmm.
somebody there that would
Yep.
always somebody monitoring the children.
Yes. Yes. My
That
grandma made sure of that.
the grandfathers, like
Yeah.
there was
Hmm.
always eyes watching.
Yes.
And not
Yes.
make it in a sense that children are bad. That's not the
Right.
case. But if we're going to secure the children, the
Yes.
community is a vital component of that
Yes.
because schools are inside of communities, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
What I see is when the when these agendas, because there were agendas before that, so the
Yes.
to pipeline started, the no child left behind. If you look at all of those executive orders, which we tend to not the most people tend to not see what the executive orders are that politicians are putting into place.
Hmm.
And when you go back and look inside of those executive orders, I'm certain that what we're seeing now was already implemented at least 20 years ago.
Hmm. Hmm.
But that was a way of how they rearranged moving grandmama, moving auntie, and Miss Shirley, Miss
Yeah.
Coleman, Miss Betty, Mr. White, all of the people who were in our communities.
Hmm.
They ease that their the connection, which is how we learn,
Hmm.
especially particularly for melanated children. We
Hmm.
learn through relationships.
Hmm.
Relationships.
Yes. Yes.
That's our hierarchy of our highest value is how we connect because we're heart people. So
Hmm.
I definitely think that it is contributed to the mental health because one, we are not all the children are not represented in the curriculum in the learning environment. Hey sisters, how y'all doing?
Hmm. Hmm.
Children are not represented. The teachers aren't even represented, nor are the people who are leading and moving education. They're not represented
Hmm.
in education.
Hmm.
So if you are not represented, you don't see yourself. If the imagery is not there through textbooks, through writing curriculum, then it does something to the psyche. And I want to put a disclaimer out now. I am not a licensed therapist. That is not my background. I am an educator who is a mental health advocate. I have mental health first aid training and I integrate mental health practices in
Hmm.
my teaching and my facilitating. So I've in all of my community work as well. So that's important for me to say because I'm not giving therapeutic advice and
Hmm.
I'm not giving therapeutic solutions, but I am giving offering content and information that is actually effective and works. So when we are not represented in anything that we do, that means our values, our customs, our
Hmm.
culture. If it's not present, it does something to our psyche. So I I wholeheartedly agree because not to get because what that clip is talking about,
Yes,
that's a whole political agenda that
yes,
is that we can that's not what we're talking about today. But you asked about the question of speech,
right.
having to be forced to do something.
Yes.
That's all that's another level of oppression
Mm,
because you're being forced to do something against your will.
mm,
That's what oppression is.
mhm,
So the ingenuity and the creativity and whatever values you hold about yourself, and if you're against whatever this force agenda is, you can't speak against it. So it definitely has an impact on our mental health.
mm.
Absolutely.
Yes, and you know what? When I saw that clip, it reminded me of something uh, that it's the psychological experiment. You
Mhm.
may have heard about it. It's called the Milgram experiment, and Chief Rod Hayes refers to that quite often. Have you ever heard of the Milgram experiment?
No, I don't think so.
What's going on in schools right now? The Milgram experiment was a test to measure a human's obedience to authority, even in the face of being asked to do something that went against their moral code.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to show a short clip about this because this all goes towards mental health. And I
Yes,
just
it
feel
does.
like this is so, again, like what the gentleman was saying, that the children would be, they were forced to comply or face disciplinary action to do something that they say, well, I, I don't, I don't want to do that. Can they just do what they want to do? And then I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just play this short clip. It's about the Milgram experiment. And then I want to get your thoughts when we come back.
Have you ever heard of the Milgram experiment? It's a classic study in psychology that explored the depths of human obedience. In the early 1960s, psychologist Stanley Milgram conducted a series of experiments at Yale University to investigate the willingness of people to obey authority figures even when asked to do something that goes against their own moral code. The experiment was simple. Participants were told to administer increasingly severe electric shocks to a learner who was actually an actor pretending to be in pain. Each time the learner gave a wrong answer, the participant was instructed to increase the intensity of the shock. What Milgram found is that a shocking 65% of participants continued to administer shocks up to the maximum level, despite the learner's cries for pain and distress. But why did people continue to obey, even when it caused harm to another person? Milgram believed that people are more likely to follow orders from authority figures, even if it means going against their own values. So the next time you're faced with a difficult decision, just ask yourself, how far would you go to obey authority? That being said,
Hmm. So that was the Milgram experiment. What are your thoughts? Do you think that this is also kind of what's going on in schools? Uh, just the forced compliance. I think, I don't know. I'm hearing a lot of things come down the pipeline about people saying, well, there's some things they don't agree with in the curriculum. There's things they just don't agree with and with policies. And I just feel like it's affecting the mental health of all the parties involved, including educators as well as students. So I want to get your take on that. Are people feeling forced to do things against their moral code, which is adding to mental health issues within these educational institutions?
One of the one of the things that notice a lot with educators and including with myself until I chose differently
Hmm.
was having these obligatory commitments.
Mm. Yeah.
Some things we can say no to, but the psychological warfare,
Mm.
we feel that our allegiance is tied to what everything that we are supposed to do and tasked with.
Yes.
We have been conditioned to believe our highest form of value is how much output we can give
Mhm.
to the organizations.
Mhm.
And to give some historical context, that Milgram experiment speaks directly to the generations, and not to go too deep into it, but the way that the generations have been conditioned to learn is very, it's what we're seeing it play out now. So I know people who are in the baby boomer generation, maybe the last wave, because that's one of the largest um, groups that are in the workforce and who are making the educational policies.
Mhm.
They were trained to learn the exact same way. So if they, and I had a family member tell me that when they were learning how to read in the 60s,
Mm.
there was a screen that will go across, and if they mispronounced the word, or if they didn't say it fast enough,
Mhm. Mhm.
they got spanked.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So those people are the same people who are making educational policies right now. So they believe that to be their truth. Their value is tied um to how wrong they are not. That's what
Mhm.
education is. People
Okay.
are fighting to be, it's not about, they in the mind they think is right, but when you hear them speak about it, it's about how wrong they do not want to be.
Yes.
If you think
Mhm.
about an A student,
Mhm.
the student is a whiz, but they're
Mhm.
always frightful about
Yes.
getting something wrong.
Yes. Yes.
That's the conditioning that has happened.
Mm.
So it doesn't matter how much empowerment. So my background is in higher education.
Mhm.
The students who come through K through 12, whether they're homeschooled, whether they are in independent schools, public school systems, charter schools, it doesn't matter. That underlying condition is still there. They fear of being wrong. They
Mhm.
fear of not being able to compete. They fear not being able to keep up, to have mastery in the content area, in the subject area. Now,
Mhm.
these are students that matriculate through this system,
Mhm.
go on to become educators.
This is okay. So I don't think parents, it just seems like this cycle. It's like this cycle, and it needs to be broken. This is why I'm so glad we're having this conversation today, because, like you said, I remember when I was going to school, we had to write rules. Like when we, like when we didn't do something right, we had to write rules. If we got something wrong, we had to write rules. I will not do this.
Remember, we had to
This,
go to the board to do that, and
yeah,
they
or
make
even
you
on
write it
papers.
100 times.
Oh my
That's part of,
gosh.
that's still that meal grant. That's an aspect of that experiment.
Obedience. So obedience to authority. That's another book that Chief Rod Hayes recommends that parents uh, read, because we need to understand that I think there's been some conditioning that's going on, which leads to some of the things that are playing out in the educational system, the mental health aspect. We need to understand uh, ourselves better,
Hmm.
and mental, and knowing when we're triggered, and just basically how our own brains work, how emotional intelligence, which we can go into, when we have to understand our belief systems and if they're working for us and all this, so we know how to navigate this. We can see
Right,
things coming.
right.
So in light of that, what role can parents and caregivers play in promoting mental health awareness and support in education, and how can they collaborate with educators to create a holistic support system for students? And then how would they go about doing that? Like, who's the authority in place where the educators and caregivers and parents can go to and say, hey, look, we want these changes. Can you speak to that? What were some of the
Absolutely.
solutions? Yeah.
So my first response, because I am a metaphysician, so I am a student of spiritual consciousness. So the authority of one's life is self. So uh, I don't. So the overall crisis that we're experiencing with mental health and education is the fact that self awareness is not taught. So we've not been trained how to have value ourselves. We're not been trained how to trust ourselves, see ourselves as our own authority.
Yes.
We seek
Mhm.
external validation. You
Yes.
know, being validated by community and people that love you, that gives
Good.
you that enriches your experience so that
Right.
you can be purpose filled and do meaningful work in the world. That's part of the human experience.
Right.
But we are talking about seeking something that is outside of ourselves, that we don't the agenda that we're you spoke about, and even the Milgram, all of these things have nothing to do with enriching and empowering us. So that is important to preface,
Mm-hmm.
starting with self-awareness.
Mm. Yes.
And I don't know that in mass people know that they can have free will choice.
Mm. It's like they think that they do,
They
but
think
they
that
don't.
they do.
There's still blind spots. Like they still have blinders on. They don't realize they are being obedient to
Correct.
authority, even though it's like I'm just gonna throw this out here.
Mm-hmm.
Almost, it's a little. I've just been seeing this lately, like people who don't believe in abortion,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're pro-life. They'll still vote for people who, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole separate subject. But that's what I mean. It's like you have to understand. I don't think people take the time to examine their own thought life. Basically,
No.
you can do what you
We,
want to
we
do.
haven't been we
Yeah.
haven't been conditioned, we haven't been trained to do that,
Yes.
because that all those experiments, and if we go take it further back to the general board of who the people who founded the general board of education and what it was for, it's exactly playing out, but it's obsolete. That's where the crisis is happening. So an energy that is coming in is saying no more, this has to change.
Hmm.
um Getting community back. So if community people, parents, it starts with the parents, and I hear
Yes.
time and time again from K through 12 educators that
Hmm.
we can't, the parents won't get involved. The parents are, they're not responsible. They won't show up. I've tried to make calls with, I've called them, I've made sent emails, I've documented all this communication and correspondence that I made to help to encourage them to be involved in their children's life that's my student, to no avail.
Hmm.
Yeah, schools are supposed to be rooted in the community. Yeah, vice versa. There is no separation, but the separation happened. But it does start with what you just said. We don't examine our people, or just society in general doesn't examine when these policies are made, like, how is this impacting me? So, like, our brother Rod, on the conversation that you all had about what's happening in our schools, and we will not go into that today.
This is heavy.
Those policy makers are the same people you voted for, but we don't read the executive orders. We don't read the bills that they sponsor, and it's public information.
This is
It's
okay.
public information.
Okay. So you can't talk. Look, you can't have the conversation about mental health without. It's like this all-encompassing thing because
Mhm.
it turns into a way of being, a
Yeah.
way we're seeing the outcome. Because look, we're around the same age. When we were in school, I don't remember being taught certain things. Like I just, and the parents, they teach you, it's all about academics, right? It's very heavy on the academics, but as far as self awareness and self growth, like you were
No,
saying, you don't get any of that. So,
none of that
but
happens.
but you do get the obedience part, like go to school, be quiet, just
Yep.
listen to the teacher,
Behave.
behave,
Be
don't
well
ask any
mannered.
questions, just all these things. And it's like we're seeing the effects of that now. I didn't, when I was growing up, I didn't question a lot of things. If somebody in authority told me, I'm just going to admit that. When somebody in authority, a position of authority said, okay, we're supposed to be doing this. This is the rules. This is how we do it. I didn't question that too much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't remember what age it was. But I started coming out of that because I think it's important. But that was when I started questioning my own thought life. My own belief systems. Are they serving me? And you know, I started doing that like way late. And it's like, who has time for that? The children. This is why, like I said, if we're getting into the children, the mental health of the children is so important. Like the stuff that they're enduring. I mean, we had to endure stuff too. I endured mess. Bullying, that was a thing. Bullying. It's like, so the children are thrown into this pot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pot of all kinds of different people and social situations. I think school is like a social experiment
It is.
because you have to be thrown into young children had to be thrust into this social situation. You're around adults you don't know, but you have to trust them. You have to navigate. Do I trust my internal guidance? Something doesn't feel right. And then there's all these things that go on, and then
Mhm.
it's exacerbated. Okay, so I'm going because it's all tied in. It's all
It's all
tied
tied
in.
in. There, it's not separate. It all plays a part in all of this. And before we can, so I can list things that
Yeah.
community people would, and I am. The first step towards healing is to first acknowledge the issue. So
Yes.
if we are going to rectify the crisis that we're in,
Okay.
we have to really acknowledge, like, you know what, this is some stuff that's really fucked up right now. I'm
It
sorry,
is.
excuse me, because
It
you have
just
food
is.
in my
It
chest.
is.
It just is.
It is.
Like, this is whack. This is not working. If we
Uh-huh.
can, if the collectively to say that, then some movement can actually happen
Okay.
before we start bringing in mental health first aid trainings, before we start bringing in curating events. Like we used to have, um I'm from a small town, and I was having a conversation with a sister friend the other day, and I was telling her when I was in Head Start,
Mm.
I enjoyed Head Start. Now,
Mhm.
when I got in K through 12, there was nothing about it that kept me motivated. And I am an educator,
Mhm.
and I shied away from that calling on my life for a long time because I did not like my educational training. And there was an activity, I was doing some self-reflection work probably about 10 years ago. And I asked myself, who were the educators, the teachers that motivated you the most?
Mhm.
And from K through 12, from undergrad to graduate school, I think there were 4 teachers. And I've had a lot of teachers
I would say that's about. I'm about the same.
that, I mean, so
Really. Mhm.
that have really
Mhm.
enriched me
Yes.
to value who I am as a
Yes.
person.
Yes.
We educators teach, they value the children based on how wrong they are not.
Correct.
You, because they have all the green lights, the yellow, you got a
Mhm.
yellow day, a green day, a red day, and all the
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
That's about how wrong that person is. So you did this right, they did it wrong, so I am going to reward you with whatever thing that they reward them with. But to it is that it's bondage of the mind. It is bondage of the mind. So if we so going back to my experience in Head Start, we used to have what was called May Day. And in that reflection, I'm like, you know what? They were lifting our indigenous culture because I'm from Mississippi and my generation is from Mississippi. We've always been here, right?
Yes.
But they let us know that they had the children, the cultural representation was present in Head Start.
Wow.
We made our feathers. We didn't have real feathers, but we cut out the, how
Right.
they
Construction
craft
paper.
the
Yeah.
artifacts from the construction paper.
Mhm.
We decorated the totem pole. We did that annually.
That's
That's
awesome.
why I was excited because I was represented.
Yes.
But when I got in K through 12, that's when the indoctrination started happening because I was a student that asked questions.
Okay.
And I always got in trouble for my mouth, for asking questions, talking too much. But
Yeah.
I really wanted to know, like the things we're talking about now, what's the role that community can play in? Like,
Yeah.
how can we bring in? I was always a cultural advocate.
Okay.
Like, how can these things be brought into the school?
Mhm.
Um, how can we bring in our real history? Why do these books not represent who we are? This is not my history. And the community can petition against these things. But before we can do that, we have to say, this is a hot ass mess.
It is. It is. Okay. So this is why parents like again, this goes to mental health. It is conditioning over all the years because I just have to say this, that when I decided to homeschool my son, it went against, it's conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
It's conditioning. Um, and so it sounds strange to homeschool your own children when this is something
Even
in
till today.
indigenous people we were already doing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this goes up to parents have to decide, okay, like again, it goes to your thought life, belief systems, mental, the conditioning, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the school is not working for you, do you have the mental fortitude? A lot of people, I think they're worn down. They don't feel like they have the mental wherewithal, the mental strength to say, okay, let me take my power back. Because again, as young children in the schools, it's not taught. So, and this is why there is like a mental health crisis
Mm-hmm.
in the schools. It's like people don't know which way to go. And then let's talk about that because I want to talk to you about um, the rising rates of stress and depression that occurred in the schools after the pandemic. I mean, it's like this domino effect. So at first, the children weren't being really taught anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then taught about their self awareness and how to do self growth. And then during the pandemic, there was a lot of obligatory requests. And it just seems like this downward spiral. You got to do this, you got to do that. The Milgram experiment, it just like it intensified. So, what are some of the things you're seeing now as far as stress, anxiety, and depression on the heels of the 2020 pandemic? What are
First
you
of
seeing?
all, first of all, the mental health crisis in education was already uh, in chaotic.
Yeah.
I mean, crisis, chaos, same thing.
Yes.
Before the pandemic, what the
Hmm.
pandemic did, it lifted that lid. So you cannot sugarcoat and bandage this problem. It has to be addressed
Mhm.
because it was brought into the homes because everybody was home.
Mhm.
So do you know that the mental health and the anxiety and depressions that educators are experiencing is directly linked to student achievement. This is documented. This is researched and is documented.
Mhm.
So if the educator has low motivation or lack of self-awareness,
Yes.
if they are not inspired from
Mm.
with it being self-generated,
Right.
there is no way that they can effectively impart that on the students, whether it's K through 12, whether it's higher education, whether it's independent schools, it doesn't matter because it's incongruent. Your mind and your heart, your energy is not together. K through 12 is the most stressed out industry of all industries
Well,
worldwide.
I want to get into that because a lot of people don't know this, but I used to be in law enforcement, and then when you get into law enforcement, you take a test for your psychological profile.
Hmm.
That's something that happens. Now I don't know why they don't do they do that in
No,
education?
they don't. And
Okay.
and educators are not required to have go through counseling, mental health training. They're not required to do therapy. Even some therapeutic, I think therapy is shifting now, but to be a therapist or a professional counselor, you don't have to have gone through therapy. But that's a therapy who has not had therapy and an educator who has not been trained to be self-aware. They've been trained to have high performance and achievement, but not necessarily self-awareness. And when you're intellectual but you're not leading from your heart and your soul and your spirit, because and I'm saying this because they say, oh, educators, it's a calling on your life, this is very unique, it's a unique industry and we're dedicated, and this is a gift that we get to impart on our children, on our future. It's so rewarding. But you have to question whether this is also ego driven,
Mm.
because we weren't trained to have the tools to be self-aware, and that self-awareness is important to have mental health wellness. In higher education, you don't necessarily have to be trained to teach. You don't have to be trained. You don't have to have a teaching background, like going through college to go, getting a degree in education to teach in higher education. That's not necessarily a requirement. So some things we may not necessarily be equipped with that K through 12 educators have, which is why college leads behind K through 12 in the most stressful occupation of all industries. This was documented after the pandemic.
So,
Now,
mhm.
go ahead.
No, I just want I think that's just a very important point to drive home. Just like what Kiala is
Yes,
saying right
I could
here.
be certified crazy and allow access to children. I see so many educators not self aware in their building. Yeah, they're not self aware, but they have the intellect.
And that's all you need, and that's an imbalance right there. You
Yep.
can't you have to have from a heart space, you have to live
Yeah,
from your heart space, and you also have to have your a fully functioning brain. The
you
two
do.
have to be connected,
It
and
has to
people
be
aren't
connected.
aware of that. And
People are not
again, this is why when you put your children in there, parents, listen, I get it. You got to work, But we're telling you right now, Professor Robinson just said these educators in the school system, they don't have to undergo psychological evaluation or psychological, yeah, like an evaluation to see if they're fit to be around children, little children. So this is why you're seeing some of these problems in the schools. You're just they're letting anybody in, and you're saying, okay, little Billy, okay, go in there, and and we're subjecting our children to people we really don't know. And I think schools can work, but how they are now, no. And didn't um we used to have a trusted member of the community teach the children. We don't know these people now. That was something that used to happen back in the day.
They're
What
coming
is
in
it?
from all over different counties, different cities, different states. When that Teach America program is one that does that as well.
Teach America, what's that?
Teach America is one of those programs where I'm gonna say it because I put their name out there.
Oh,
So it's a program where they have um, teacher shortages.
oh,
They recruit across the nation for people to be educators where there is a high teacher demand. That's
okay.
what that program does. So, and what that does is bringing people from different parts of the country that don't understand the culture.
Ah,
Because now we're talking about culturally relevance. When you don't have culture, which is the heartbeat and the foundation of who you are and how any organization and system functions, that's the heartbeat. When it's not represented, you will have mental health imbalances because you
oh,
don't know who you are.
oh my God, this is, and the parents need to, it's like parents, you need to have more talks and discussions with your children about their family history, about their background, what
Hmm.
you all believe in. At schools, whose voice is louder? If your child is in a school, whose voice is louder? The child, the educators and the people at the schools where your child is spending, 6 hours a day, maybe more. And then you come home,
And
the
the
person comes
food,
home, y'all tired, y'all might say a couple of words to each other. Who are they going to listen to? Their friends and the educators or you? Whose voice is loudest? This is what people don't understand. So when
hmm
their children come home and they start acting sideways, it's like, why is such and such acting like that? Well, they're around varied personalities.
yep,
They're exposed to that at an impressionable young age. I had another show where in the first 7 years, how the brain develops, that's the fastest. In the first 7 years, and we're sending children off for hours on end, and they're soaking up all of this other that you probably wouldn't even teach your child. Okay,
right.
so there's a comment here. um I'm not sure what this means right here. What's
Yes,
this
the
red
red,
yellow
yellow,
green
green,
day?
they always obsess my son. It's mental manipulation, and what hurts them is the most is what they are that they are singled out. Children laugh when the teacher threatens them with that. Yeah, that red, yellow, green is something that they do in probably K through 5. I don't think it happens in high school, but that's you green, you had a good day. Yellow, that's a
Okay.
caution, and then red, you bad, you need to go in timeout. So these are things again. K through 12 is not my background. I know people and have family who teach and are in curriculum and who are in policy making in K through 12. This is how I know this, and friends. And this let me clear this up. This is not an attack on educators.
No.
This is not to say that they are bad people. They're not. They do mean well. We do mean well.
Mhm.
So the what the challenge is going back to how we first started the conversation, we have to go back to the people who are making these policies,
Yes.
who are not even inside of our communities.
That's
They're not inside of our communities, but we're not at the table when they are making these decisions for us. This is why this autonomy, we have to exercise our own autonomy in order to shift this. We don't have colored days in our high school, but I'm sure you're familiar, Keela, right, with the colored days
she said they don't have those in
in
yeah,
high
in high
school. I
school.
think it's something that is pre-K through 5 or something like that. I know it's not in high school.
But like you were saying, it just goes back to mental health. I think it's just about awareness. Parents need to be more involved because we don't know the psychological or the mental health profile of some of these educators. There's a lot of good ones. Um, like you said, there were some that you can name. I have ones that I can name from childhood, um, and they're probably educators. If I had to say that they actively had like some type of spiritual connection, or their home life was working or something like that. They felt relaxed. They felt good about their position. So when they came to work, they were ready to work with children and they weren't already, what do you call it, running on fumes. You know what I mean? Because that's
Remember,
an issue
do you
too.
remember? Do you remember when prayer was in school?
Yes. Yes, I do. And they took it out when I was a child.
They
My
took
grandma
prayer
was
out.
mad about that.
Now, this is not to get into religion. That's not what it's about.
Right. Right.
Because all religions, whatever your religious background, and if you're a spiritual person, her daughter is an educator. Yeah, so she knows the ins and outs of all of this conversation. Share this with her.
Yes.
Okay, the color behavior starts in pre-K. Yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes. Um, if you are a spiritual person, if you have any self-awareness, we know the power of prayer. The
Yes.
community, the church was heavily connected to the schools. Prayer was in school.
Mhm.
So when you speak about the educators who were more present and more compassionate, or exuded more compassion and care, and they had balance in their lives,
Yes.
that goes back to the community. And even though the curriculum was was not culturally relevant, the teachers made it culturally relevant.
Hmm.
The teachers made the curriculum culturally relevant just by their presence,
Hmm.
and how they the community. I mean, they didn't get it all right, but they were enriched in community and they brought
Yes.
that to the classroom. So, administrators and people who are in leadership in education, they are experiencing high levels of burnout. And you know why? Because they're managing school districts. If they're a superintendent, they have at least 4 to 5 schools that they're managing.
Wow.
So if you have 4 schools and you have staff, you have the students, you have the teachers, you have the counselors, you're managing a district and all of the layers in between, and you have to have appease your stakeholders, be in good relationship with the stakeholders in the community, the funders, the politicians. K through In higher education, a department chair is running a whole department, a dean is running a whole college.
That's a lot.
So there, though, like this, it's not just the children. So my work is to the educator,
Yeah.
because consultants come in and they can give you good information on how you can connect with your children and make
Hmm.
better planning and help your children make good A's and help them with the standardized tests. That's another conversation
Mhm.
with K through 12 with that
Yeah.
standardized testing, which is another Milgram effect,
Mhm.
that standardized testing. And it's also connected about how wrong you are not,
Wow.
and your values are tied into that. But these are the components of what's happening in education that is driving these numbers to skyrocket, and is leading to greater levels of depression, suicide with our children. We never really experienced suicide at these alarming rates now
Yes.
with children, with our youth.
Yes.
Teachers are committing suicide. They're also experiencing their higher and growing numbers of substance use among educators.
Wow.
Hmm. There's a theme that we all know as educators that happens. Um, we have to do a lot with a little.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing family members who are educators say this. And then when I got in higher ed, that was a thing. And I was like, something don't sound right about this. You people have like $1 billion budgets,
Mhm.
but you can't have just a supply room and have that thing well stocked. Like, really? Even if you, so yes, pay teachers more. Even if you did that,
Mhm.
give them the supports that they really need to be self-aware, to be to be competent in who they are so that they can be better equipped.
Yes.
The programs are there across the nation. Most states have social and emotional learning in their Department of Education,
Okay.
but people don't know how to implement it.
Mhm.
So they will talk at, so when they do those in-service trainings for
Mhm.
educators,
Mhm. Mhm.
they'll give them the material, they'll talk at them, but there's no real clear instructions on how to implement it,
Right.
because it starts with the self.
Yes.
The resource is there, the culturally relevant and responsive teaching, which is what I do. I do
Mhm.
social emotional learning, professional development as well. It's all there, but in mass, they don't know how to implement it. They're not clear on the implementation process. And I wonder if they actually think it will actually work.
Hmm. It'll work. It'll work. Um, I've had, there's this one girlfriend that I have, and she was talking about they had like a program in their, it was like when she was back in Texas, and they implemented like a social emotional program um, for the children, like how to talk to people, how to know when you were stressed, so how to use your words to express how you
Mhm.
feel, how to solve problems, problem solve, things like that, instead of just lashing out. And she said that program was a big, big success, and a lot of people want to enroll their children in it. Um, but then the program, the funding stopped for the program, and it was in one of our communities, and the children were doing great.
Yes.
Um, and so it does work because once you know that you have the powers in you to calm down and breathe, you can think better.
You can.
You can make a change. You can affect your reality. So, and children don't know that. They need to be taught. Um, so I would like to know, what advice would you give to educators who
Hmm.
are overwhelmed or uncertain about how to navigate the challenges related to mental health and education? So what resources or strategies can they access to enhance their own well-being and better support their students? I'm sure that you might have some. I know you'll have some solutions for that.
Yeah. So the going back to community, what the way that I see education going now is creating, it will be created in more so learning communities,
Hmm.
because again, we learn in community. We
Yes.
learn best and our greatest eh, um Our greatest achievements happens when we do something in community and we get there faster. So pooling the resources together, bringing in, if the school can't do it, because teachers have been saying this, they're tired, they're stressed, they
Yes.
feel undervalued.
Mm-hmm.
The vet so and the new teachers that are coming in now, they are having the greatest challenges because they, from 0 to 5 years, they tend to just leave altogether because they don't feel supported. And if
Yes.
they're not feeling supported, they don't
Mm-hmm.
also can't be heard, nor are they valued,
Mm-hmm.
not to mention the pay.
Uh-huh.
So for those who are committed to the work, commit to forming uh alliances with other educators. Do it at your own free will. Have autonomy over your mind, your thinking. Create teacher pods. They used to have teacher lounges when I was in K through 12, but create your own teacher. They've education is, times have changed. Things have modernized. Get together at your homes, at your local libraries. You don't have to use money, but your time, your attention, and your commitment.
Yes.
Work together. If you had 3 to 5 teachers who are dedicated to a change, then you can hire a consultant. You can bring in somebody to educate you on how to implement these strategies for yourself first, then impart it. Then everybody will be like, oh, wow, Dr. Harrison's
Mm-hmm.
class, her students are excelling. Her students, they just love her.
Mm-hmm.
That people will start noticing the shift,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how you work from the inside out. But
Mm-hmm.
it starts with the self. So if there are a number of educators who are really committed to bringing forth solutions and change, yeah, get together. Bring in mental health first aid training. There's mental health first aid training, and you can take that class for free. There's one for youth, there's also one for adults.
Tell us about that.
So the mental health first aid it's an initiative that was started by the National Mental Health Association, for, I may be butchering the name, for mental well-being or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it started in Australia because they saw the same thing happening to their youth and with their educators. So they got together, and the educators and policymakers there started what's called a mental health first aid training that can be, so um so people can understand how to work with mental health challenges, to
Mm-hmm.
recognize that mental health challenges, if you're experiencing mental health challenges, here are resources and tools that you can use. And it's really designed to destigmatize. There's a big stigma around mental health still, especially in our
Yes.
community.
Yes.
And as much as people know that they have a challenge and they are overwhelmed, they're stressed out, they're burnout. And burnout, by the way, is classified as a mental health condition.
Please tell us about some of your trainings or workshops that you offer to help educators, because I think it's important to uh, support the ones who really, the ones who seek you out, or the ones who want to affect a change. All
Right.
teachers are not bad. There's other things going on, and that's a greater problem. But the ones that feel like they're stuck in the system, but they don't know, they want solutions. Please speak to
Yeah,
those men and women, and please share some of your resources and some of the workshops that you offer to help these educators get the help that they need and support they need.
absolutely. So I have an educational consulting firm, which I don't you see it, but it's Be Global. And that B is the acronym for the blueprint to edify education globally. because we need a change. We need a transformation in education. In my consulting, I use customized transformative strategies that will really shift the way that we do education and the business of education, because it is a business.
Mm-hmm.
And we do professional development trainings and culturally relevant and responsive teaching, social emotional learning. We do these in learning communities, where we bring in educators, as you say, who desire to bring this change, who are dedicated to the work, who are ready for the change, to work together in pods and cohorts.
Oh, good. Yes.
Because when you work in small groups, you can really, that intimacy makes room for greater impact.
Yes.
Yeah. So we also offer leadership training, leadership coaching, and that ties back to what we were saying, the self-awareness. Self-awareness gives you vision. It lets you know who you are. And a lot of people who are in education, they may not necessarily be purpose with being educators. They may also have lost sight of their vision, of their why. Why are you in education? What is your purpose for being in education, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that the coaching helps them to be clear about aligning their personal vision with their professional vision to make it cohesive. Because again, all of this connects to mental health, the mental health crisis, because we don't necessarily know who we are and our power. What I also teach is I created a Be Unique. It's a masterclass series where I developed lesson plan templates, video workshops for educators to help them simplify their learning, and they can translate this information directly into their
Mm.
lesson plans.
Is this
So
for K through 12 and higher
it's
education? Okay.
it's for K through 12, higher education, independent schools, even for those who have, like for yourself, for homeschoolers as well, who
Okay.
are looking to bring cultural relevance, who are looking to expand social emotional learning. I develop these templates and these workshops on a platform where they can access and use it directly into their lesson plan.
Wow.
That's to simplify what they do. But on top of that, we have a VIP program.
Mm-hmm.
In that VIP, we do group coaching. So I'm facilitating the coaching, but I'm also helping them to embody these practices, these self-care practices, self-care rituals, and also to have autonomy over their intellectual property.
Mm.
That's also a breakdown with the mental health, because if we're speaking about the financial, we all know that when you finance create the lack of finance and the belief of the lack of finance creates stress on the mind.
Yes. Yes.
The As educators, our gifts and our creativity, our ingenuity overlaps.
Mm-hmm.
And most times educators don't necessarily have boundaries between the two,
Mm-hmm.
bringing that work home. And sometimes
Yes.
those gifts are to be monetized from our own intellectual property, which
Mm.
is what I train educators to do,
Okay.
to monetize your intellectual property. That doesn't mean that you have to leave the classroom, because some people actually love it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also have greater impact by using your gifts. What are those things that people call on you the most for? Because we're so gifted, we're so creative, and we're always bringing that into the classroom. So those are ways that people can work with me. We can do transformational coaching, personal development. I'm a personal development strategist, so I help them to really have a spiritual life. So I'm different,
Mm-hmm.
and everything that I do is spiritualized, and not religion, but spirit. How you connect to every from the inside out.
You know, I'm glad you said that. I hope people go to your educators go to your website and check out some of your classes and your workshops that are coming up. Unfortunately, look, I'm a strong advocate of homeschooling. However, I know that some parents are still going to send their children because they feel like they don't have any other option. And I'm hoping that this discussion we're having right now around mental health uh, in schools and some of the problems that educators are going through, that educators will seek the help that they need and become more aware and get better so they can be better in their roles as educators, the ones that really are doing it for the passion, because, they can get worn down. Um, and it's important to take care of your mental health. And after all, we're here to serve the young people and the future generations. And being an educator is such important work. Um, the system sucks, but I think for the educators that do want to affect a change, the ones that come together and they can get, like you said, get cohorts together, work in small groups. Maybe they can start their own schools. But the point is, the ones that work, the ones that are actually look. When you know better, you do better.
When you know better,
And educators can get together. The ones that are like disgusted, that say, you know what, I'm tired of this mess. Let's do this. Let's get together. Educators need support. We need support. We need support. And if parents, and if you're aware and you're like, I don't like what's going on in schools, support the educators that are doing the proper work. And maybe you can convince them, look, we will pay you if you just come over here because we like what you're doing. So there's that option too. So parents,
absolutely,
we all have to take our power back.
Yep.
This is about mental health, which is important. Physical health is important, right? But when you're kind of cuckoo or you're overwhelmed and filled with anxiety and depression, how is that helping anybody?
You can't make logical, sound decisions. You can't make clear choices.
Yeah, and we need to be as adults, we need to be the ones because the children are following us. If we don't have it together, then that's not a good look. Okay, and the next generation won't have their stuff together. Oh, and you just mentioned something about financial stress. So I want to mention that because that's another type of stressor that parents are going through. This is why they send their children to school because they do have to work. And so another cause of stress is financial stress and the rising cost of rent and food for families. And then I remember you mentioned something to me off camera about a solution that you have for families in this regard that could help ease the stress of the stressors surrounding all of that. Did you want to mention that? One of the solutions
Sure.
that you have?
That's my my land workshop. And it's called Acres and Trust. Your land is your birthright. So what I'm teaching in this workshop are the strategies that have been passed down to me for generations since, like, I come from a line of landowners. Land is wealth. Everything comes from the earth. Everything that we do comes from the earth. We've been, again, that's another conditioning because of our experience of what happened to our families as it relates to land. We shun away from it. We don't want no parts of it. But there's a call that's happening now.
Yes.
Again, I'm different. Mother Earth, from a spiritual, metaphysical perspective, from the experience of what's happening on the planet, we are all being called to go back to the earth, going back to our roots, because that's what anchors us. That's what grounds us. That's what keeps us sound and safe. And in the workshop, I'm teaching people how to effectively and easily acquire land for pennies on the dollar. And what I mean by that is throughout the country, they have what's called land sales, You can buy land directly from from a land seller. There's people that's selling land right now. You just have to know where to look. But across the country, they have tax sales. And it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that somebody's property was stolen from them or taken from them. Some people just choose to not have it anymore. And some they grew up there and the children moved away. They don't want to be bothered with it. So that's up for grabs for someone who chooses to have that experience. So if you have your own land, it doesn't necessarily you mean that you have to live there in that particular place. However, you can grow your own food. You can start your own school. You can start your own homeschooling
Yes.
community. You can start your own teacher pods. You know, you can start your own teacher retreat centers on that land. If you had 5 acres somewhere that's outside of the city,
Mhm.
put a couple of tiny homes on there. That can be rental property for Airbnb. You can start your own tiny home communities, or
Mhm.
you can have that space designated to where you do your teacher retreats, your educational facilitation, your
Mhm.
community development trainings. There's a multitude of ways, and I get excited about talking
Yeah.
about stuff, as you can see, but there's so many ways that it can be used. But ultimately, grow your own food.
Yes.
We're also, like you said, the cost of food is rising.
Rent.
We also see what they have done to the food supply. Again, I'm a metaphysician, so I have autonomy over the way I think, over my life. I am a free spirit. I am a free will spirit.
Mhm.
And that's what I teach people. Liberation of your mind and of your thinking. If you can have liberation of your mind and your thinking,
Mhm.
then you have autonomy in all other areas of your life, including your intellectual property as an educator. So get you some land. It's easy. It's so simple. I'm teaching you the step-by-step processes, and not only am I showing you inside of the workshop, but you will have access. I have all the documents that you will be able to download and you will keep for your archives. And you also want to secure your posterity.
Mhm. That's
Land
facts.
is wealth. You can use
Yes.
it as collateral for those of you who participate in the banking systems and getting a business loan. I have so many family members who just buy land so they can use it as a collateral for getting a business loan.
Mm. Mm.
There are many ways to use it. You can use it for industry,
Mm.
meaning that you can, if there is a corporation who wants to lease a parcel of your land to do a certain thing, they pay you to rent on your land for whatever project it is that they have to do. And it doesn't have to be anything bad. It could be someone who um who is, like, you have a family member who wants to start a bottled water company, and you have water flowing through your stream. That's an organization, that's a business that's leasing your land to still do meaningful work in the world.
Mm.
Power lines, electricity, all there's so many ways to use it. Even
Mm.
think from down to the clothes that we wear.
Mm.
Your bamboo farm, you want to make stuff from bamboo,
Mm.
you know, there are ways to use it. So my land workshop is, I didn't mean to go into a tangent on about, but I get excited about the conversation.
I'm getting excited.
Yeah, but the land workshop will be July 29th. So
Okay.
it will be 12 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I can share the link with you. Can you tag
Okay.
me to the YouTube? I'll share the link
Yes.
with you how to register for the workshop.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. How do we do that now? Oh, do you want to do it later?
Oh, I can send it to you now, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on. Let me see how I can do that.
And then, does anybody, while we're getting that link together, does anybody have any questions while Professor Robinson gets that link together? And then we're also going to share her social media links too, for those who would like to get in contact with Professor Robinson while she gets this link together. Does anybody have any questions that you would like to ask the professor? Okay, so, all right. Okay. Yes. Master Glam wants your contact info, and I'm actually going to get that for you, Master Glam.
Okay.
So no worries there. Let me see. Okay.
All right. Let's see.
So
How do
here she
I?
is on Instagram. Do you want to text me or? Okay, so Master Glam, this is Professor Robinson's Instagram. Okay, if you want to get that. And then
How do I share this?
you can share, you can send it to my phone. You can text me.
Oh, and then you. Okay. I went and I copied it. Hold on. Let me find it.
And then as you can see here, this is her link tree. So if you want to go to her link tree, this is the whole, you can find all of her links for all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Her YouTube, Facebook,
Right.
her workshops, right? All these things, her consulting solutions, all of that is there. Okay, so we have a question here, and I don't know if Professor Robinson, you can answer this. I'm going to hold on, Joshua. We're going to get your question answered. Let's just have her send me the link really quickly right here. And then we'll have her answer your question. Okay, I see it now. So, Professor Robinson, we have a question for you from the audience here.
Okay.
Here it is, right here on the screen.
What's the process of claiming the allodial title of your land if you already own the property? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Yes. So that's a process that I'm still learning all the details, but to give you the succinct version that I know, you go to all, so the county courts, the county systems knows that the allodial titles are already available. Whoever your tax assessor is, it can vary based on the jurisdiction, meaning your state, county, locale. You would put a document together to say that you are petitioning to pull in your allodial title so that you can own your land outright. But that's a conversation that you will have with the tax assessor. And there's steps to it that the way that I'm being the way that I'm learning it is that you do put it in the public domain. And the public domain could just be saying that I was Joshua am claiming title to parcel number 3592 in the jurisdiction of whatever county you're in. At this address, this is, I am sole heir to this property. And you put it inside, like the public domain could be just putting it on a community bulletin, like in a public library. So the person that I'm learning this from is Ron Gibson. If you follow what is Ron Gibson's, I don't know that off the top of my head, but kids, that's something that we can we share that with him later? Can you share that with him? But it's Ron Gibson. It's called the American Meeting Group. If you Google American Meeting Group, you will be able to access his information. That's who I'm studying with. But you also want to consider putting it inside of a trust as well. So
And that's also something you'll be going over in the class, right? How to
that's
put
what
things in
I'll be going
trust.
over that in the class. Yes, I will definitely be going over that in the class. Yeah, American Meeting Group is Ron Gibson's website. And he has seminars, webinars, and he's having this conversation right now on how to get the land pat. Land pat and the loyal title are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the link to my Acres and Trust, Your Land is Your Birthright workshop. And do I need to no, you had the other link tree there as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And you can get that, and you can also find this link on your link tree, correct?
Yes, that link is also on my link tree as well.
Okay, so I'm going to show that one more time for everyone. And does anybody else have any more questions for Professor Robinson? So we already got her contact info, and her link tree is here. And let's see, we also asked her about, the financial stressors that parents are faced with. So whether or not you want to homeschool, or you still want to, or you want to start your own school, um, if you can ease the financial stress, sounds like that's a win-win for all parties involved. And Professor Robinson also has solutions for educators who want to become more self-aware, and then bring some of that self-awareness into the classroom and become more balanced, culturally aware, emotionally intelligent educators, which will only help future generations. Professor Robinson, is there any last words that you would like to share? And I'm sorry about the misspelling on your.
It's fine. When I saw
Yeah,
that,
I try to
I
type
was
that
like, wow,
fast.
that
Sorry.
look even more indigenous with that H on it.
Is there anything else
I've never
that
seen
you?
it spelled like that.
Is there anything else that you want to share? And here's my link tree in case somebody wanted to contact me. But is there anything else you'd like to share? Any closing words you want to share with educators?
Yeah, so I just sent you a text for my Facebook page. They can follow me on my Facebook page as well. It's Professor Robinson, the educator, on Facebook.
Oh.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you shared the Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think it was a conversation that you had with when you and I had together about what do educators want, and what I see that what their truest desire is peace, having a peace of mind,
That's right.
and knowing that they are valued. So I am the first one to advocate for educators. I see you, I value you, and I appreciate you. You really are appreciated. You truly are appreciated. And you know that every day from the students that you teach.
Yes.
And I also want to impart you with this. Know that you do have the power within you to be an autonomous being.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Your intellectual property needs to be protected, but the only person that can protect it is you.
Yes.
You are the only person that can set and enforce boundaries on how much you give, how you give, and what you are obligated and forced to do. That is what will help you enrich and come to peace in your life.
Mm-hmm.
But it starts with self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with self-awareness. And remember your why. Why did you choose education? What was that burning desire in you at the time when you chose to go back and go into the classroom?
Mm-hmm.
What was it in you? Go to that part of yourself, because the self will not lead you astray. When you are tapped into your higher self, it will not lead
Mm.
you astray.
That's facts. Okay. Well, I mean, there's really not much more to say after that. That's an excellent message for educators. And I really appreciate having you on today as a guest. I think it was a great build, and people will receive a lot of value out of this broadcast today.
I
So
appreciate you for having me. Thank you so much for this.
I'm
Thank
so glad you came. I'm so glad you came.
you. Yeah.
Okay, well, I want to thank all of you for joining us, and we will see you next time on Bringing It Home with C.N. Smith.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Go out and have some fun.